Yeah, the first thing that you should do
What?
is introduce yourself. Who
Hi.
answer these questions? Answer these questions. Who are
Okay.
you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
That's a
And what special insights do you have?
okay. That's a interesting list of questions.
Oh yeah.
I am Gokanaru. Okay. I am a drama YouTuber, self-described and self-appointed. And what do? I make hit pieces. That's what I'm most known for, at least. But yes, I cover drama content. I'm very immersed in the drama ecosystem. And why do I do that? That's a good question. I mean, I grew up with it to one extent. I succeeded at it to another. And another big reason I think is that I'm very interested in people. Okay. And at this point, I won't lie. There is a lot of interesting things emerging from drama spaces in the online world. I think that it's really easy to write off what's going on here as just like complete, useless slop. And there's a lot of that. There really is. But there are interesting things to be gleaned. So I'm trying to be on the forefront of this new medium. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you're absolutely correct on the degree to which there's the ideas and then there's the personalities and they mix together and then they're on the front end of the meme adoption curve. I don't know if you've seen that video of mine.
Mm-hmm.
The why
Yeah.
online politics matters. It's like it's all happening on the front end of the curve. And it's so obvious, at least in my mind, how much all of the insane shit that happens, it's like it draws attention to it, but it does filter through to like mainstream society. First off, what of my stuff have you seen? How familiar are you with my applied sociology
I am
kind of
decently
lens?
decently aware. I've watched your meme videos where you equate people to like League of Legends characters. I like
Excellent.
that. I like that kind of analysis where it's
Yep.
like you're kind of viewing things through the egos, but you're bringing it kind of to a broader level of what they represent.
Yes.
I've seen a decent amount of your interviews. I watched some of your recent ones as well. I believe you had someone who was raised in a more religious Jewish household, and the path that they took to
Oh
kind of
yeah.
become an
Jay.
active anti-Zionist. Which I honestly, that was a cool ass conversation. And then I will not claim to have seen all of your content, but I have definitely.
No one has.
I Nobody. Yeah, I guess. So.
But okay, well that's just helpful to know just in terms of like you know the concept of the great meme war. We are in a war
Yes.
of ideas. We're in a war of ideologies. But the memes infect the minds of people, and then those people then their behavior changes,
Hmm.
and their behavior then spreads the memes to other people.
Yeah,
Um,
they become a conduit.
yeah. How? Okay. So here's the question that I always ask myself, because you and I, this is terminally online. I think would
I'm ready,
would
dude.
accurately fit. Okay.
I'm ready.
Here's the thing. This is a permanent split I have in my soul all the time,
Hmm.
which is on the one hand, so much of the terminally online shit is a bunch of nonsense, waste. It's just personal drama, which is just interesting. It's like reality TV, trash, nonsense, whatever,
Yep.
insignificant, not worth like thinking about.
Hmm.
That's one perspective, and some of it obviously is true. But the other perspective is shit. This is the stuff that Twitter is real life in terms of like fucking politics, in terms of where the fucking culture is going, right? And so not paying attention to it, especially when you have the schizo, pattern recognition that I'm sure you and I do.
Yes. Yes.
It's like, is it just cope to be like, oh, well, this is just, it's more important than it really is, or it's like, no, it's actually significant YouTuber drama type shit. When it comes to like political stuff mainly. I don't know. What is the read? How would you
Yeah. Okay.
think
So
about things?
there is definitely an attribute or an aspect that is like just terminally online. This is kind of within its own little chasm on the internet that doesn't really bleed out into reality. But I do understand now. When I first saw that like Elon Musk bought Twitter, I didn't understand why. Okay. I even viewing Twitter as like a company to purchase because it was publicly available or whatever. It is like a risky stock because it's hard to monetize. Like they notoriously had a hard time monetizing it. Anyway, I basically came to understand in time that, yeah, okay, so the way to sell Twitter, I guess, is that it is the commons for the elite. Okay, it is the place where, if you are, in a lot of cases, like even elected officials, but certainly like representatives of companies, if you're a big personality, a celebrity, whatever, in a lot of cases, this is where people go to actually have their fucking opinions expressed, challenged, or fucking, like, I guess, adopted or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I think that there's a degree where, like, what happens on Twitter does reflect in how powerful people absorb the information and how that can inform their decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Obviously, the reality that we have to kind of accept is that there is a lot of people who are powerless largely and who won't exert their will in the world in a meaningful, I guess you could say, way, at least not in terms of politics. But when you're dealing with, a platform like Twitter, that is definitely one where paying attention, it might not be useful to your day-to-day life, but it might give you a better read of where the people who are in positions of power are aligning themselves or where they are directing themselves. It's basically like an interesting window into the thoughts and the kind of the things that, like, people, in positions of power are being exposed to. But,
yeah, and there's an interesting trend, because it used to be CNN, MSNBC.
Yeah.
Where do the politicians and where do the people in power, where do the lobbyists and all that, what is their cultural milieu where they absorb the vibes and memes from? It's like that was MSNBC, the controlled sort of institutions. Now it's been decentralized and diffused, and it is on Twitter and then other, peripheral platforms too.
Yep. And one thing I'll say that is a kind of mark to Twitter's credit, right? Because there is a ton you could criticize Twitter for, but one thing that I've definitely observed, and I am, much like you, I'm sure, I like to kind of get nerdy about the analysis. I like to take it kind of a step back from my own perspective in the larger picture or whatever. And Twitter as a platform is a bit of a wild card because there is so much unfiltered content, if that makes sense. So, like, it kind of fulfilled the role of what, like, a live leak used to have, right? Where it's like, what you see on Twitter might be a reflection of how fucked up your head is, sure. But my circumstances, like, almost every time I open Twitter, I will see just horrendous gore. And for me, in my case, usually that is in relation to, like, ongoing conflicts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And dude, you will just not find that on YouTube. And if you do find it, it'll be extremely filtered. And it all depends, of course. There's like, again, there's much analysis you could do as to what sources are trusted, right? In terms of YouTube, there's a very strong filtration or filtering process where it's like, if you are talking about breaking news and it's something that is a very serious political event, well, there are trusted sources who will be pushed much quicker than fellas like you and me, right? Yes,
correct. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Whereas on Twitter,
keywords that if you search, no one will come up but for the Fox and the MSNBC or the whatever.
Yeah, and so this is an interesting thing because this is basically how you could say mainstream platforms are navigating now the barrier, because technically anybody can be an independent journalist more or less right now, right? And obviously, during COVID, there was a big clampdown, especially by Google, to try and, limit the amount of independent journalism going on, whatever. But nowadays, it does seem like instead of outright banning people, which they still do, but just not quite as overtly, instead of outright banning them, they will either demonetize them or shadow ban them or just disincentivize them from, talking about these issues as much as possible, and incentivize platforms and people and corporations, government agencies, basically any institution or person with relative power. That's really what it comes down to.
Yep,
if you are taking, yes, exactly. But the circumstances effectively that those with relative power, okay, those who can in some way potentially negatively impact the business bottom line or power of Google Corporation or whatever, these are the types of people who are brought to the forefront. Basically, they're the ones who are they're given the permission to talk about serious topics. And so, if we're going to bring this back real quick, this is, in my head, why drama YouTube has become such an incredible conduit for political discussion, okay? Because the only way for independent media personnel or journalists or whatever the hell you would want to call us, okay? Drama idiots. The only person for idiots like me the only like the most easy, I guess you could say, way to enter the domain of talking about these things is through the conduit of talking about like some kind of an interpersonal drama, right? And so you see this through many people, and there are different degrees to this. There's different levels of like consciousness that people are, you know, playing into. Like there's people who literally do not care about the politics, but they just want to talk about the drama. There's people who mainly care about the politics, but know that they kind of have to do it in the veil of drama. But the fact of the matter is that when we're talking about like personality type content, there is a number of creators who are very hyper aware that this is the means by which a lot of young people and whatever are interfacing with these political events, right?
Oh, yeah.
It is through personalities. It's not through some talking head at fucking CNN or some government organization. And so that is a big part of why I have been really understanding the kind of very new and very weird world that we're currently occupying, okay, as random idiots, which, you know, we are, who are able to talk about very serious things and have thousands of people listen to us. This is a new age, okay?
Oh, yeah.
So trying to understand it is, it's scary. It's kind of, it's you know, hard to navigate. It's very, very volatile, but, you know, I think it's worthwhile, hopefully.
Well, the individual is more powerful than ever in history in terms of like one person who has one idea or one meme or one clip or whatever can go viral and just change the discourse just outright, right? I mean, it's literally like, it's sort of how, you know, globalization, we're all interconnected. So one Chinese guy eating a bat can create a virus that spreads over the whole world. It's like, well, with Twitter, with the way that just technology and the algorithms work, like one person who, you know, articulates a particular truth in a very compelling way or something, or makes a really potent meme, like has the ability to then influence the whole discourse. And then the point about, you know, it's being done through the lens of drama, YouTube, or, you know, just personalities,
sensationalized content.
Yeah. But I mean, literally, because human beings are social creatures and our brains are literal socio-cognitive, we're socio-cognitive animals. Our categories are fundamentally social, meaning we understand things fundamentally in terms of narrative. Yeah. And narratives involve people. And so it's like, well, you could have libertarian economics versus Karl Marx's labor theory of values, right? Yeah. It's like, and those sound like abstract and technical, like sort of like math or whatever, like, oh, it's calculus versus whatever. It's like, no. Those are abstracted ideologies that come from personality types, right? Like Karl Marx hated fucking wealth inequality, and libertarians hate whatever, you know, government interference. And so it's always interesting to then see these ideologies manifest in the actual personalities that they appeal to. And then you watch the personalities battle, then you can infer stuff about the ideologies. Now, that's in the best case, like, because oftentimes what you just infer is that these people are fucking, you know, dweebs who all they seek is attention and whatnot and don't actually care about the consequences of their beliefs, which I think describes a lot of them, but not all of them. And not, you know, and there's a scale for different people, but
there is levels to this shit. You're right. Like there's elements where it's like there are people who are aware of their role and they embrace it in like a more professional manner, I guess you could say, or whatever. Yeah. But then there's absolutely the element of ego where it's like, okay, well, I like actually getting into the drama. I like having the politics as the basis for the drama so that I can kind of, because it provides a lot of, you could say, like charge to the drama or the like interpersonal beef you have when it feels like it's an existential fight or it's something that you really believe in or whatever. There's definitely, you know, components to this that go well beyond the fucking, you know, the serious political events that become the backdrop.
Well, and I would say one of the aside from advantage and disadvantages are value judgments, but one potential advantage of this medium of exchange of ideas through personalities, through drama, is human beings it's much easier to evaluate personality than it is idea. You can evaluate toxic personalities much easier than whether or not an idea is bad, right?
Yeah, the thing I would pose is that it's easier to attack a person than an idea as well. Like that is a big part of it.
Correct.
Right? So,
yeah. Correct.
So it's like if you, so I'm just going to apply some pictures here, okay?
Oh, hit me.
So like right now, in my spaces, okay, and believe it or not, in a lot of people's minds, guys like Hasanabi are basically the archetype of like you are a socialist or a communist or whatever, right? Like this is the representative of that entire fucking ideology, which is varied and it's very, you know, complicated. It has its own history. There's different offshoots. There's different beliefs. It's not a static thing, but in the minds of a lot of people and the way that they interface with politics, this guy is synonymous with that idea effectively. And then, of course, we have figures like Destiny, who in a lot of ways has he's kind of strived to have himself identified with status quo liberal politics effectively, right? Like
institutionalist.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then there's different ways we can look at this, because then you have a guy like Asmongold who claims to basically not really ascribe to any strict doctrine, right? Like he's much less of an identitarian on paper, right? Like that's the way he tries to, he's just like, I'm an average Joe, just like a common sense guy. But in practice, he's more of a MAGA guy, really, right? But there is a little bit of contradiction there, of course, but you know, there's people who kind of obfuscate their alliances and people who kind of embrace them. And at the end of the day, like, yes, dude, I mean, especially again, the spaces I fucking operate in, people, what Hassan does and what he says and the way he operates, that in a weird way affects the way that people view his ideology. Okay. It's not the other way around. Yeah.
100%. I mean, you know, it's like, I mean, literally we associate ideologies with people. Yeah. Just as a heuristic, like Trump with Trump with MAGA, or even like Martin Luther King with civil rights, or you know, I mean, we literally call
Marx with Marxism,
exactly. We call philosophies the person that
Maoism,
that propagated them. And the interesting thing is, Jonathan Haidt talks about this. Jonathan Haidt's a social psychologist, and this is partly why I call people autistic all the time, or a lot, is because he points out, and this is William James says something similar with the idea of philosophical temperaments. Certain ideas are literally just abstract extensions of certain personality types. So, for example, he cites it specifically. I think it's Jeremy Bentham. Jeremy Bentham was like this 1700s philosopher. It was who I think utilitarianism was his thing. It's very like calculate the outcomes and all that. Jonathan Haidt's like, it's overwhelmingly likely that Jeremy Bentham was severely autistic. And yet we adopted, or the utilitarian philosophy became then the dominant idea for a period of time and in a certain strain of culture. And so even people who aren't necessarily autistic themselves are operating by an autistic philosophy.
Right.
And it's like the ideology and the belief system you have is literally an extension of your moral systems and personalities, which is different from like math, right? Like it doesn't matter if you're Adolf Hitler or Mother Teresa or Mahatma Gandhi. Like calculus is calculus. If they know calculus, then you can learn calculus from them, and it's the same every time. Right. But for ideologies, it's like, no, these are social value judgment laden things. Yeah. And so like Hassan, like, you know, what Hassan does then affects the what do you call it? The you know, the idea of socialism or the popular conception of socialism. It's like and especially amongst, you know, the youth, the Gen Zers, who are even more impressionable and whose brains are online all the time.
And a lot of it is obviously aesthetic as well, right? Like there can be different things that people really like about the person that they would then conflate with kind of the, I guess you could say, like the ideology or whatever. So like, with Hassan, right, there's what is it? I mean, okay, I don't know. I don't have a perfect picture for Hassan as a guy, but he obviously tries to, I guess, embrace this. Lately, especially, it seems like he's been trying to embrace this like masculinity kind of presentation.
He's a progressive in a MAGA body, don't you know?
That's the what is it? New York Times article?
I think it was the New York Times article.
Yeah. I was surprised the New York Times interviewed him. Actually, it's interesting. I think that I expected, to be honest with you, I expected the campaigns against him to do a lot more damage in preventing his mainstream, you could say, fucking potential or whatever.
Yeah, because he's very anti-Israel and anti-Zionism. Yep. And that is a very dominant ideology. in those
I mean, it's
spheres.
emerging as one. Yeah, it is in the West. I guess it was certainly not. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't get an impression that that was a popular position up until about a year and a half ago.
What, pro-Zionist or anti-Zionist?
Being anti-Zionist.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, people, yeah, making fun of Israel. Sure, that's no problem.
Mhm.
But yeah, actually, explicit. Yeah, the whole October 7th thing woke people up, which is, it's kind of like, well, how is Hassan? I mean, in my opinion, Hassan has many character flaws, from my observation,
Yeah.
from how I see him interact and what he says.
Mhm.
And it's like, how does someone like this get afforded all of this influence?
Yeah.
There's practical things of like, yeah, he does he's funny. I have laughed out loud at some of his jokes,
Mhm.
and all that, but it's like, well, like this is there. Jordan Peterson talks about how any responsibility that is left unaddressed gets gobbled up by tyrants, gets gobbled up by nefarious people.
I see.
And so
Yeah.
any valid points, any valid ideologies, any valid belief systems that are not taken up by normal people get taken up by extremists, right? So so being anti-Israel, it's like, well, because it's so easily, because your average person, for genuine reasons, doesn't want to be associated with like anti-Israel, anti-Jew, anti-Zionism stuff.
Right.
They're not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So then it just leaves the Nick Fuentes and the Hassan Piker to now pick up the banner of this very real issue, which as people realize and wake up to the degree to which Israel is acting like a terrorist state, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Then more reasonable people will be able to take up that banner, and then it's not Hassan and who said what, like white women should be. I don't know. Well, I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he said insane shit, and so is like people like Nick Fuentes.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Which would you sooner choose? You don't have to answer that question, but
choose in what sense? Choose to
be the rep for being anti Israel.
That's a terrible question.
Yeah, we can just move past that.
Well, no. I think the correct well, there is no correct answer in that. I think my gut says Hassan.
Mine too. Yeah.
Because
I mean, I've seen the conflation. Like, okay, so like, I've seen Fuentes, I've seen his unfiltered opinions, you could say, and and I know that he is someone who conflates actively in reality, anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism.
Oh, of course, yeah. He does not like Jews, like as a race.
Yeah, which. Yeah, I've look. So yeah, sorry for context. I made a video about Sneeko. Okay, everyone. Which is currently my current claim to fame. And in analyzing Sneeko, his descent into the red pill, I interface with a fuckload of these alt-right weird characters, you could say. And I got to see their, I guess, even the development of their kind of ideologies on a pretty intimate level. And yeah, it doesn't really end in any good direction, as far as I can tell. But yeah, no, it is interesting because Fuentes types, they've gained a fuckload of, I guess you could say, I don't know if legitimacy is the word, but more so they've gained a fuckload of backers in light of what happened after October 7th. They've been emboldened, but yes, they have also kind of been trying to correct their rhetoric a little bit. At the end of the day, I view those guys as opportunists, or even worse, people who believe everything they're saying and they're kind of a threat in general. But yeah, I would say, so like people have been saying this, and I still don't see it personally, but like people have been saying that the left is the biggest force for anti-Semitism at the moment. And I'm not going to lie, I would like to hear your kind of read, I guess. But like,
sure.
Again, after interfacing with that whole alt-right sphere through my, my viewing of people like Sneeko, Andrew Tate, etc., it seems like the right is like absolutely dominating the entire landscape as far as talking about Israel, certainly, but also obviously being anti-Semitic, in some cases, pretty overtly.
Yeah. There's a couple ways to look at it. I mean, first off, there's like the Tucker Carlson right, who I don't think is anti-Semitic.
I see what you're saying. Like
he's clearly,
he's more so like just America shouldn't be America's problem type guy. Is that his thing?
So look, I mean, there's basically four camps.
Yeah.
There's freak right, normal right, freak left, normal left,
Yeah.
right? And you can plot them out on any issue.
Mhm.
But when it comes to Israel, there's freak right, freak left, normal right, normal left.
Mhm.
And I think you're talking about the freak left versus the freak right. Because the normal right, like the Tucker Carlson America First people, it's like to be honest, I think they just have the most. They have the argument that appeals to the normies the most, which is America first. Like what? Like we live in America. Why the fuck are we supporting foreign wars? This is like that's a unifying thing that normal Americans believe. So in that sense, the non-freak right, the normal right, has the advantage there. The normal left, I don't even know what that like. What is that like? That's like the liberal left who's not anti-Semitic but still pro-Israel.
Yeah, like kind of a Democrat or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like the like Aaron Mattei, Gabor Mattei, Norman Finkelstein. Norman Finkelstein is on that border, but I like Norman Finkelstein. But like, there's obviously the progressive case to, for the pro-Palestine side of things. And I think, they're making valid arguments about fucking war, a terrorist state committing war crimes and all that. But in terms of why is the right like coming when it comes to the anti-Semitism stuff, it's like, I do think it's an element of the forbidden fruit kind of thing of like, don't ever talk about this. It's bad. It's bad. It's like, don't look into it. Don't look into Holocaust denial, stuff like that. It's just bad on the face of it. Especially for a younger generation who grew up on the internet, who grew up with Live Leak, who saw dead bodies at 13 or whatever, whose minds are warped, whose sense of the taboo, I think, is like, fuck taboos. Like, I saw dead bodies. And I sympathize with it to some degree. It's like, I've seen, there's a Live Leak video of a guy getting his head blown open with a shotgun that I saw, I don't know, when I was probably 14 or 15. It's like, that's fucked.
Yeah.
But then one consequence of that is like, taboo. Like, I don't give a fuck about what people say I can and can't.
Yeah, the desensitization of the modern spirit, bro.
Exactly.
I definitely feel that because, I mean, dude, like the one of the biggest differences with war nowadays and with genocide nowadays
is
on
that fucking TikTok,
dude. Yeah, exactly. And you get unfiltered video from the location. You can, in a way, walk the mile in these people's shoes, not obviously literally, but like see what they see. And there's like people so it's like there's a case, right, where there are Hossam Shabbat. There's like basically, journalists in Gaza who have throughout the entire campaign after October 7th been documenting what has been going on, right? And so this is a guy you can just follow on Twitter. You know what I mean? This is a guy who you can like, you're like almost every day or every second day, you're seeing like an update from him. This is like your source of news. And then one day you see him literally dead. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, whoa, that adds a wild element of humanization to what is literally happening. You know what I mean? It's something that I like our parents, I don't think had to ever interface with. This is also, I mean, this kind of goes into Baudrillard, where it's like the Gulf War didn't happen. It's like Baudrillard was basically from what I understand, what he's basically saying is, he was offered to go as like a journalist to be on the ground, during the Gulf War. And he basically was like, no, actually, I will be able to know what is happening better if I sit in a fucking hotel room and I watch, CNN or Fox News or whatever, right? Like basically, it's a situation where when you're watching from a distance, you can actually consume more of the media. And in his case, he was basically saying it didn't actually happen because it was filtered so much, right? It was filtered through all of these kind of conduits where it's like, okay, so you have Wolf Blitzer is like representing a battle that is happening with like a beautiful diagram. And they're basically just kind of explaining, so this happened and then that happened. And it's like, it's kind of narrativizing it, but it's still not in a very intimate way, right? Like it almost makes it feel, it's just like, oh, this is kind of like a cool battle that's going on.
Yeah, it's like a video game. It's like a map, like fucking autistic map strategy game players like me are like, oh yeah, cool. Like this is interesting.
Yeah.
Which is very different from then seeing, oh, this guy is dead. Like
yes. Yeah. No, that's where now we're almost approaching this like a kind of inversion of that, where it's like the mass media was able to kind of present it in a way, a more kind of you could say like removed sense, right? Like it was able to present it in like, here's the big picture, right? But it was completely stripping the intimacy of what is actually the carnage of fucking war, like the reality of how brutal it is. And it is now kind of inverted where it's like, oh, wow, okay, so now, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that one of the biggest, by far biggest, kind of things that people are now interfacing with and that is forming people's opinions is the up close interpersonal like experience of like, holy shit, I just watched fucking like 3 kids get blown up. You know what I mean? And so there's this weird thing that's happening where it's like, there's simultaneous desensitization that's occurring because it's like you interface with such brutality. But at the same time, there is like a kind of renewal of the humanity of the actual situation.
Sure. And the recognition of how terrible it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, it is like a bit of a litmus test. It's like, I mean, I don't think it's controversial to say, but like when you are facing, brutality of that level, right? If you can then in like good conscience kind of cheer it on, there is something that reveals about you, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, dude, there's a clip of Ben Shapiro who I am not a fan of.
No, I would understand why.
Where someone asks him like, "Do you support what's going on in Gaza?" He's like, "Not only do I support it, I celebrate and laud it."
Yeah,
it's like, hold the fuck on for a moment. I like, even in principle.
Yeah.
Let's say the pro-Israel side has the moral high ground here or whatever, and on some things, sure they do. Of course, obviously, October 7th. He says, you can't say what Israel's doing is wrong unless you also say what October 7th was wrong, right? So there is moral truth to that. But dude, have some fucking...
Yeah.
Like you said, it's like, and like, the fucking there was this, a couple weeks ago, right around the same time that the medics were killed.
The Envoy massacre.
Yeah. There was a missile strike that blew up a school that had a Hamas commander in it.
Oh,
not a missile site, not an active rocket installation, a Hamas commander. They blew up the whole fucking school, dead kids, body parts thrown about, and it's like...
Yep.
The idea that you would say, I celebrate and laud what Israel is doing, because it's justified. And those kids, oh, it's terrible, but that's Hamas. Yeah. It's just like, it just reveals something sociopathic.
That's the banality of evil, my friend.
Yeah, and as you were saying, I was just thinking to myself, like, is there cause for optimism of like, well, maybe what this does is create an entire generation that's just like so unanimously against war, that then that just becomes the key priority. And it's like, well, Saddam Hussein and all, and fucking Kim Jong Un and all the terrible leaders of world history, recently. It's like, well, they're going to do war anyway, and so we need to be able to do war. It's like, yeah, but in 30 years' time, every world leader will have been a Gen Z kid who was on, fucking online. And to be honest, as I'm saying it, it's probably just going to mean that they're even more sociopathic because they're super more desensitized. So
I think that the system might select for the type of person who, it's not even that they would make the worst decisions, it's that they wouldn't question people who are making the worst decisions, if that makes sense.
Yep.
That is another thing that's tough, because I saw, and honestly, I've been respecting it. I've seen that you have been kind of, in a lot of cases, like pointing out the kind of lack of humanity that is being just flagrantly exhibited by elected officials and unelected officials. And so, like, you have like the fucking group chat where the Trump administration's coordinating bombing a what they believe to be like a location that has a Houthi captain or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the casualness of it, it's like, it literally looks like a conversation you would have with your fucking dad. And but they're literally planning to decimate a building that more than likely has like countless civilians.
Yep.
And
it looked like a group chat that I would have with my fraternity. Like literally, like thumbs up, America first. Like, we got them. It's like, banality of evil is exactly that.
And that's kind of that's the thing, is that again, in a lot of cases, people are able to be a level removed from the reality of what is actually occurring and the effects of it and whatever. And so that's why, in a way, I do respect. I'll bring it back. I respect X as a platform, whatever, Twitter. because it's like you can create your own echo chamber. People obviously do this, whatever, but there is at least the ability to be exposed to the like real unfiltered fucking realities. Whereas on platforms like YouTube, it's hard to communicate. Like it's hard to kind of communicate the like brutality without at all being able to represent it. So like I've made videos, I made a video interviewing a Palestinian guy a long time ago now, but there was footage I added that got my video age restricted, and I just can't really fucking fix that. You know what I mean? Like it's a question basically of like, do I sanitize it or do I just leave it in and it's age restricted? And
I mean, YouTube is very sensitive on the violent stuff. I posted a clip that it was like a guy being carried on a stretcher.
Yeah,
no blood or gore, not like, and it got.
And then this is where we enter, I think, an interesting conversation, which is again, the fact of the matter is that who has like the trusted status, who can post potentially violent or at least just even give their opinions on breaking news or serious events, whatever. This is in a lot of cases a filtered process, yes, but it's also a case where it is those who have relative authority and relative power. So it's like what you were just describing is Ben Shapiro basically signing off on terrorism against the civilian population. It is not framed that way. Not many people openly describe it that way. You know what I mean? But then again, there's like this, there just is this weird kind of double standard. And it obviously the primary role is just like, okay, dominant power factions within the West versus in areas that are not in allegiance with the West. It's like, you can have that opinion that Ben Shapiro has and be in contact with high up officials within the US. You know what I mean? Like, this is not something that you will ever really get checked for saying, even though on paper what you're saying is fucking brutal. It's like it's wildly flagrant. And there's even what is amazing to me, right, is something like the situation with the settlers, right? The Israeli settlers who are occupying the West Bank. This is obviously like completely illegal, internationally acknowledged as being illegal. They are allowed to have YouTube channels. They are allowed to literally promote their ideology. And that's not me saying they should be banned. It's me saying there is this interesting thing where it's like terrorism on one side is absolutely not in any way allowed to be platformed. I'm bringing this back just to bring it kind of back to the, I guess, Hassan thing, because this is the big thing, is that a lot of people basically are advocating for Hassan to be banned because basically of his tacit support of, or his overt support of the Houthis, his tacit support of Hamas effectively. And there is like a kind of double standard that's not, I don't think, really in any way being kind of grappled with, that is interesting, at least to me. But
yeah, I mean, I think Destiny one time said, like, we need to, it would be better if like Tucker Carlson was gone, like censored, shut up, shut down. It's like, it's so, earlier you asked about, why is the right why is the right gaining all the power and stuff? It's like, well, you have Kanye West coming out with Hail Hitler. Right. That's a memetically significant thing. And here's the thing. It's like, yeah, you have to, and this is difficult for you and I to do, and probably most people watching, is you have to put yourself in the shoes of the normie.
Oh yeah.
Right. And the especially, but the normie who I used to be like, I never want to be the guy saying the word normie to like otherize myself.
I know what you mean. Like,
but normie's a relative term. Like, you and I are normies to like, I don't know, like whatever subculture you and I are not a part of, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's
basically like, are you in the in circles, or are you like really invested in it or whatever? Are you a nerd basically? Yeah.
Yeah. So the normies in regards to like kind of the political sphere and all that. You could view it as Kanye West released a song that is the most transgressive piece of art. It's getting banned left, right, and center. And that's what makes it appealing and alluring. And aside from the fact it's just objectively catchy, like it is. I'm sorry, it just is.
It has memetic chops, is what you're saying.
Correct. It has a high degree of memetic fitness just on the music itself. But then a whole principle of it's being banned, so now we're going to go find it and whatnot. It's like, bro, that's every countercultural movement ever was, we'll suppress it, and then they just Streisand effect it. And it's like,
There's
Yeah.
definitely an interesting conversation there. There's no denying it. I mean, the problem is that like, dude, that song is just fucking brutal. Like, if you're like, it's literally, it doesn't open it with like, I can't see my kids anymore. I'm high on nitrous, and then it's the fucking chorus basically.
Yeah.
It is a fucking crazy song. Oh my god,
Yeah.
it felt like a Lil Xan song from like 7 years ago, but then adding the anti-Semitism or whatever you call it. Yeah.
I saw Michael Knowles react to it. Which was interesting. I was like, damn,
What?
this is a bold move. Yeah, Michael Knowles react. He
Of
plays
the Daily
song.
Wire.
Yeah, Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire.
Wow.
Like, bold move, Michael. But we don't have to get too much on the song. I do find it interesting where it's like he says, and I do believe like Kanye West is more mentally ill than he is anti-Semitic. I don't think that's that.
Yeah, but he's also being used as a conduit by guys like fucking Fuentes. Like that's the
totally. Dude,
like that's the pill that needs to be swallowed. Is that he is like a useful idiot in a huge way or whatever.
Yeah. Sneeko, who you are an expert in. You saw that Kanye was on with Sneeko on Piers Morgan, and then Kanye walks off.
Yeah.
Okay, I saw a clip afterwards of Sneeko saying to Kanye, like, dude, you did the right thing. He was mean to you. Because what happened was Piers said that you have, what is it, 30 million, 38 million, when in reality he had like 39 million.
Right.
And so Sneeko says to Kanye, no, you did the right thing. He was showing you up. He was shitting on you by saying 38 instead of 39. He should have known that. It's like, bro, that is the most mental illness inducing thing you could possibly do to someone.
Feeding into his delusion.
Pure sycophancy.
Yeah. And
it's exactly what Jordan Peterson talks about, where Hitler surrounded himself with sycophants that just no one ever told you the truth. Stalin, the same thing. No one ever tells you the truth. They only tell you what you want to hear. And it's like, oh, when I saw that, it was like, yeah, you're right. Kanye is definitely mentally ill, and he's being used by these fucking clout chasing who do know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I believe,
gross.
If I remember correctly, I believe that it actually seemed like the plan prior to the interview to have him walk out.
Yeah, right.
And so they were probably just waiting for
a reason. Correct.
Yeah, and that is a dumb reason. But then the thing is as well, like, I'm not sure how much that's selfish by Sneeko, because then that basically became a Sneeko interview on Piers Morgan.
Oh yeah, right.
So in a way, it could have been viewed as self-serving. At the same time, I don't know exactly how that faction will really manifest. I don't know where it's going. It's hard for
Which faction?
The faction of
anti-Semite faction.
Yeah, but it's also hysterical. That's the thing. Like, it's a psychotic kind of. I don't know. From what I've observed, it's a psychotic kind of movement, you could say, that is just a complete rejection of. It's like a complete rejection of any kind of like. Would you say norms, or like it's a lot of it is just they define themselves in opposition to whatever's mainstream.
Yes, 100%.
They're trying actively to dismantle the idea of a mainstream, if that makes sense.
Yes, it is literally. I mean, this is how I need to make a formal video formalizing this, but it is literally the memetic equivalent of Satanism to Christianity, right? So Christianity was the dominant culture, right? And it was as the dominant culture, it had its oppressive elements, right? Like it, And so Satanism, most people who are Satanists do not literally believe in Satan. They're mostly atheists, and it's just a giant FU to the...
it's a reaction, yeah.
Correct. Now, some people can hate Christianity so much that then they genuinely start doing the satanic shit of like, we're actually going to engage in the weird Satanist
They get high on their own supply, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you have...
It's a big part of mass psychosis, for the record,
Totally. And so you have the dominant culture, and then you have the reactionary counterculture. Okay, what is the dominant culture that they are reacting to? There's many different ways to look at it. I think one accurate way to look at it is it's the post-World War II consensus is what it's called. Basically, people are atheists. We're secular now. Like, Christianity's on the decline. Although now rates are going up, interestingly enough, pendulum swings. But it was basically, no. Hitler is Satan, Holocaust is hell, and racism is the ultimate sin.
Yeah.
Right? And then equality is like, the objective good, right?
Yeah.
Like we just say equality and democracy are objectively good. Like democracy is heavenly and all this. So all we've done is we still have a religious framework, we just replace it with different things, right? Hitler being Satan and all that. So what is the Groyper right doing? Well, they're just doing the Satanist equivalent to this, where they're saying, okay, Hitler, now we're going to make Hitler edits, cool edits where Hitler's cool and all that shit.
Yeah.
And it's literally what the Satanists are doing in opposition to Christianity. But the reason the reason it feels more significant, I would imagine, for most people is because most people who are watching this, at least, are not hardcore Christian. So they genuinely do believe that Hitler is worse than Satan because they don't think Satan exists. So it's like, okay, now you know what the Christian who literally believes in Satan feels like when, when people do the Hitler stuff.
Yeah.
And so I view it as a counter reaction, and then they're getting high in their own supply.
Yeah, and one of the most dangerous things, historically in a lot of ways is so first of all, I think a lot of the Sneeko stuff, and I don't know exactly what we're identifying it as, but yeah, the anti-Semitic right, whatever. This
the freak right.
Freak right. I like that. It is a manifestation deep down of a sincere resentment. Like, not only is the ideology it has resentment baked into it, right? Like, and a lot of what they, again, because they're anti-Semitic, right? They just project a lot of their own gripes with, the world at large onto Jewish people, right? And obviously they use in a lot of ways Israel as a conduit for diminishing, the Jewish kind of diaspora. And it is, again, and the way that I put it is in the West especially, it's so often the case that anti-Semitism is basically just anti-capitalism for fucking idiots. It really is. If you listen, and it's so weird because sometimes these guys are actually even I think I was seeing Fuentes adopting kind of socialist rhetoric, or Sam Hyde's a good example. Socialist rhetoric kind of being adopted, but obviously they don't identify it as Marxist or socialist or whatever, because that's I'm
Marx
sure
wasn't Marx Jewish?
Exactly. I'm sure. They would say that's Jewish, basically. Yeah. And there's so much. This is a massive rabbit hole, for the record, but the point is that it is, in a lot of ways, it's built. The foundation is based on resentment, and a big fucking dangerous thing when you have a movement that has resentment baked into it, and then the leaders of that movement or the representatives of it start to actually believe in the sincerity of the cause, the sincerity of the underlying reasons. When they get too high on their own fucking supply, when they have all these people backing them blindly, that is the recipe for a fucking disaster. Okay, that is the recipe for certainly genocide, but obviously just in general, just horrific political events.
Well,
go on.
The idea that what happened in Nazi Germany and stuff couldn't happen here anymore. It's like, no, we're human beings. Those were human beings. All the same machinery, psychological or otherwise, is in place for that to happen again. And Germany was hit with hyperinflation, like a massive economic downturn prior. It's like we haven't had that. Thank God. It's
another thing that's of note, that's worth noting at least, is that the left in Germany had been crippled effectively by a failed revolution, and there were a lot of opportunists who kind of capitalized on that, you could say. So it's a big part of the National Socialist Party, right, is they're trying to kind of, in a way, grab at the branding of, this is some kind of a left alternative. Most people knew it wasn't really, but it was a way for them to kind of, just adopt, because there was a lot of people, again, resentful and who just felt hopeless or whatever, and they kind of capitalized on, again, a failed communist revolution, which a lot of people were very hopeful about. And so the
resent. Scott Galloway. He's like the bald guy, NYU professor.
Let me see. Wait up.
Scott Galloway. He always talks about how society is rapidly producing tons of lonely, dispossessed young men, which are the most dangerous thing in the world. So, okay, we're doing that. Talk about resent. And I agree, psychologically, I know people who are genuinely anti-Semitic, and the resent is this. It's like they wouldn't have gotten there unless they feel that society, and to some degree, unless they feel, valid or otherwise, that society had cast them aside or whatnot.
Yeah.
Right?
That's why a lot of it becomes conspiratorial, because you start to, again, this is the big part where you start to get really lost in the sauce, because you start to your framework becomes psychotic, because you start drawing connections to rationalize either your own failure or your own dispossession, or like your own world falling apart effectively. And it's, obviously it's sad on multiple dimensions, but yeah, when it comes to guys like fucking Fuentes, look, when you get to the core of their ideology, it is baked and rooted in a kind of religious psychosis. Like, that's the thing that he kind of does try to not overtly play into, especially when he's interfacing with like, kind of more mass appeal or whatever. But I've seen him have kind of unfiltered conversations on streams with Sneeko and these guys, and like at the end of the day, they do believe in a kind of what would you say, like an apocalyptic. They believe that the Jews are trying to bring about the end of the earth. That's basically their entire thing. And there's there's a lot that goes into that, but that being almost the core belief that drives the entire kind of process, that fundamentally, like you were saying, like how ideology becomes almost a conduit through the person. It's almost, in a way, it can be like a total mind virus, right? Like it can totally infect their fucking brain and influence their actions. And when that is the base level of your belief, obviously that's going to infect your fucking your actions, what you say, what you think, in like a real damn perverse way. You know what I mean? You basically are, because again, it's not just that you are thinking like, oh, I am I am basically like doing something that I believe in. It's like, oh no, if I fail at what I'm doing, they're gonna fucking end the world. You know what I mean? So now you are almost a crusader. You're a crusader in a holy war. Exactly.
This is look, everyone's religious. Jordan Peterson was right about that. I mentioned
Jordan
Peterson 4 times in this conversation so far. That's a new record low. Only 4 times.
Oh yeah, dude.
The eschatology of it. It's like the same with environmentalists. Well, we have to stop climate change. Everything's climate change. Right, yeah. Literally the end of the world. And then, Jews are bringing about the apocalypse of the world. Now, I will say, to steelman the anti-Semites, this is the problem. The problem is there is a lot of like what is Israel, like what Israel is doing is genocide. The Greater Israel Project, the settlers, like the degree to, and even the problems with Judaism as a religion of like, the idea of goy and like over preferencing the in-group. It's like, if Islam very clearly has problems, Sharia law, I don't know, and Catholicism or Christianity that denies evolution has real problems. It's like Judaism has those as well. And the problem with the anti-Semites is they latch onto true information to start, let's say, and then the question is like, well, how much of it is real? It's like, well, again, given how much of a terrorist state Israel is, people are very inclined to go along with, well, probably all of it is.
Yeah.
So I would say the important thing to stop the people from going down the apocalyptic rabbit hole is to go. It's like, yes, you like, for example, it's like one of the kind of the critical memes that I stick with is like, of course, Jews wield an extremely disproportionate amount of influence in the United States. Anyone who tells you that's not true is lying to you, right? Like that's just a fact. The Holocaust museums, their websites don't deny it. They justify it. They say, Jews were kicked out of other professions, so they went into finance and stuff like that. It's like, okay, so stop gaslighting people. And then people say like, Jews control the world. It's like, okay, it's like saying men control the world. No, it's less true than that. But like directionally, I get what people are saying. Or if someone says white people control America.
You're saying basically there's like power factions that exist that do have sway and influence, but they don't.
Correct, of course. Miriam Adelson. Do you know who that is?
No. Wait, maybe if I see her. Wait up.
Miriam Adelson was the single biggest donor to Trump's campaign behind Elon Musk. All she cares about is Israel. That's her only issue. Her entire platform is keeping America pro-Israel. And she and Donald Trump gave a speech in which he explicitly says Miriam was in the White House more than anyone. Always something for Israel. Always something for Israel. I'd give her Golan Heights, and she'd come back the next week. I said, give it at least another week, please. Which is just him very clearly speaking to the degree which there's an overwhelming amount of influence. So it's very easy. What I don't like, I suppose, is the gaslighting of people who are predisposed to see like, oh my God, like it's true. Jews are involved because Jews they value culture, they value education, they value in-group preference. They're going to be on the forefront of every intellectual movement, good and bad. The anti-Semites only focus on the bad part. But like, I don't like how people are gaslit and saying, oh, no, you can't acknowledge that like there is Jewish influence in virtually every major ideological movement, which there is. And you have to acknowledge that to be able to then open the path to be able to, you know it's not because of their genetic, or it's not like in their fucking genetics that they're bad, right? Because of all the good shit, you know. And here's the endless number of people of Jews who are anti-Zionists or whatever, and who are
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like,
You
there's
know.
obviously like, there's people who are like just kind of, they're not advocating for the interests of Israel really. They're just advocating for the communities, obviously. And then there's people who are advocating actively for empowering Israel and even making it such that they don't have to comply with the standards that are set for most other countries or whatever.
Yep.
There's a lot that you went into there that's definitely worth kind of unpacking. In my head, so what you're getting at is totally true, which is basically that a lot of, again, we're talking right now about the far right, whatever word you said, freak right. I like it. So they'll basically inject like things that are true or factoids or like, narratives that have coherence basically, but then they'll bring you to a fucking brutal conclusion, or they'll bring you to a very short-sighted conclusion, or they'll bring you to a genocidal conclusion, right? And this is amplified in ways, it's difficult in ways because it's like there are factions of whether the Jewish elite or Jewish, I should say, my bad, the Israeli elite and the Israeli kind of like religious factions that actually do kind of subscribe to some of the apocalyptic
That's the problem.
things.
The Messianic Jews.
And it amplifies, the problem is that it amplifies the kind of psychosis between these factions.
Yes.
And then seeing through that is obviously difficult. Like, especially when you have leaders, Israeli leaders like Ben Gvir, who is, he gets a shitload of harassment and etc. anytime he goes to America, and he gets a shitload of harassment in Israel. And from what I've seen, that is all justified, for the record.
Of
like,
course,
this guy,
deservedly.
Dude, I've gone down the rabbit hole of I've basically navigated trying to understand how the Israeli elite navigates. And the biggest thing that is a common thread that is very, very weird is that, especially again in the case of Ben Gvir or Smotrich, like, these are guys who they have, you said, Greater Israel Project. In the case of Ben Gvir, this is a guy who has, in his past, I was amazed when I saw this. I was confused. I didn't think it was real, really.
You want the shrine?
Oh yeah, well, sorry. Why? What are you thinking?
The Baruch Goldstein shrine?
Yes,
shrine
yeah, exactly. No, yeah,
right.
exactly.
That red pilled me. I made a video about it a year ago, or like a few weeks after October 7th. That is the single biggest what the fuck. Yeah, I don't give, don't talk to me about anti-Semitism.
The idea that that's not like an disqualifying fucking characteristic for him to have a position of power as he does. I believe he's still the security minister or whatever.
No, he left because he was upset that Netanyahu negotiated a deal.
He
was the minister of national security throughout the entire first year of the post October 7th thing. And just to be clear, so everyone knows, explain what Ben Gvir had.
Yeah, so sorry. He basically, he had a shrine in his home, effectively. It's described different ways, but a picture in his home of Baruch Goldstein, who is a guy who basically opened fire in the 90s against a group of worshiping Muslims, in Hebron, and he killed 29 innocent worshiping Muslims and wounded over 100. Like, this guy basically, he was a doctor, and he, one day, there's much that people say whatever, but one day he decided, he took his assault rifle and he went and shot up this fucking this place of worship, effectively, which is obviously a very important holy site. And dude, the sad fucking reality is that there is very real factions, within Israel, who worship him as almost a hero, as someone who like almost was inspired in a divine way, instead of like a psychotic person who had a very, very overt mental fucking break that led to the carnage of almost 30 people. You know what I mean?
It's the equivalent of if the fucking, like, Tom Homan, the guy who's doing all the deportations, imagine if he had a shrine to Dylan Roof in his fucking living room. Or it's like, that's the equivalent.
and from what I'm aware, by
and
the
it's
way,
just so it's just so
the
insane.
from what I'm aware, the reason that he removed the image of him from his home
Yes,
was
is
so that
because
he could get allowed into the Knesset, basically. So it
Yep.
was basically somebody, another member of a party,
Naftali Bennett.
exactly, complained, and he was like, "Dude, what the fuck? This guy's got a fucking shrine or a picture of this mass killer, basically, this terrorist, however you would designate him." And he is he's trying to become a member of the Knesset, right? Like a fucking representative of the Israeli people. And his response was basically, okay, fine, I'll fucking get rid of it. And then I don't know if you have seen this, but it's like, this is again, the shrine is enough, right? But there's also, I believe, a year after that attack, there is video of him dressed as Baruch Goldstein and calling him his hero. Like this is not.
Of course, he didn't give up the belief.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the one thing that's really honestly been interesting to kind of see is just the brazenness of it, right? Like, so that, because I don't know exactly what this is reflective of, but you would think that, especially when it comes to elected officials, right? Or people who basically are representing the Israeli government on an official capacity, such as, Smotrich as well, that they would be better at masking. But it's like the mask is not just slipping. It's like, it's so overt to anybody who's paying attention.
Yeah, of course.
And, obviously not, there is much divide within Israel. And in a lot of ways, Israel is a democratic experiment, right? But it is a fucking, like, when you see things like that, it definitely does not in any way inspire confidence.
Let's, because nobody loves talking about Israel more than I do.
Okay. Yeah. No. Let's fuck it. We opened the.
Well, I was gonna say, because there's some other things that I want to get your thoughts on. We'll go from maybe like another 20 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
How many young boys have had their brains rotted because of the red pill ideology and all that shit? Do you think it's like a serious epidemic that people that people claim it to be? I don't know. The archetypal video in my mind is those kids going up to Sneeko, saying "fuck women, fuck gays."
Yeah. I know. Yeah, exactly. So that I think that does and has had a real impact, okay, on like kids or youth or whatever. To the extent that basically, okay, so this goes into a whole thing that if we're talking about memetic warfare, okay, there definitely was a big window that existed where mainstream platforms were sanitizing a lot of what was being seen and trying to basically make it such that most of the creators that are kind of propped up, or most of the creators that are certainly on the homepages or whatever, that they are kind of pre-approved, right? And so this level of sanitization, in my head, it did lead to a kind of compounding effect where the only people who were engaging in truly offensive, either comedy or genuine opinions, which I think they've become conflated, but basically the only people engaging in those things are active, conscious political actors who have like ulterior motives, right? Because it used to be that people would kind of just, the way that I put it is there's no separation nowadays between play and belief, okay? So it used to be that someone could have like an edgy or fucked up sense of humor, and obviously there's ways this can still be the case, but they would have that sense of humor and they would know like, okay, I'm just fucking around, this isn't that serious. When you see guys like Sneeko, like Zerka, like Fuentes, whatever, Andrew Tate, these are guys who are intentionally injecting comedy to normalize the actual idea. Like, they believe what they're saying, but for a kid scrolling through TikTok, just hearing Andrew Tate say that you should hit your woman or whatever, that is like it has like a dopaminergic reaction, right? Because it's like, I should not be able to see this. This is crazy. You know what I mean? But then again, in the case of these guys, a lot of them actually believe the things that you would think, it's like, you would look at it and you're like, oh, that's a joke. That's a joke. Right. But you look deeper into it and it's like, they are constantly rationalizing it. They're constantly, and again, it leads to the, where we're now at, which is the new Kanye song, right? Which is effectively a manifestation of like, they are still trying to kind of treat it like it's a joke, but they're also trying to normalize the kind of conversation around Hitler and all this, like basically, they're trying to do a lot of subtle or not subtle Holocaust denial, or unpacking, unraveling, whatever you would say. They're basically trying to bring certain questions that are not really worth in any way exploring. Back to the table. But yeah, I would say primarily, okay, that there is a big divide that's been breaking out, and the divide is between young men and young women, okay, especially so from all the polling that I have seen, okay, young men are more right wing, I guess, than in the past, at least the recent past, whatever. And young women, especially educated young women, are more left than they have ever been, effectively, right? They're at least more liberal, as far as I'm aware. And that kind of a divide, it's a little scary, because there is a element of like, okay, so there's a lot of men who are probably feeling very dispossessed, and they find solace in the resentful ideologies of these guys, right? Like, again, foundationally resentful. This is why I spend a lot of time trying to understand things through the framework of like young guys. I have fucking a lot of younger brothers, right? Like, I understand how young guys think. I'm 26.
Okay, I'm 28. Yeah.
Hell yeah. And so like, I understand what it feels like to harbor resentment, to be alienated, right? And these are things that those types of guys, Andrew Tate, will kind of capitalize on. And look, there's the surface level stuff that's obvious. It's like, go to the gym, don't be a fucking weirdo, whatever.
Yeah, right. Those are the good points that they capitalize on.
Yeah,
right?
Which are so base level, dude.
Yep.
So base level. But they use those small good points to catapult themselves, to basically be like, he is a good force for young men, whatever. And then the weirdest thing is that the fucking, like, dude, I don't know, Candace Owens propping up Andrew Tate is a weird thing, man. Like, I don't fully understand it. I don't know if you've explored this rabbit hole at all, but Candace Owens' husband was good friends with Andrew Tate. And for some reason, Candace Owens has been going on an active campaign to basically sanitize Tate's image. A very weird thing. I think that, and again, another weird thing is that, as far as I am aware, it seems to be the case that the Trump administration did soften the fucking restrictions on the Tates in Romania to bring them to America. Which is when that happened, I was actually like, am I living in a simulation? Like, reality truly is stranger than fiction. I really cannot believe where this is all leading. I don't get it. Like, because there's so many contradictions that exist within, especially right now, the American right, that are not really being navigated in any real way. So it's like, Andrew Tate has, for the last year and maybe a half or so, he has totally opportunistically, okay, and there's very obvious ways to tell that it's opportunistic. He has opportunistically jumped on the actions of the Israeli government as like, this is why there's a case. Yeah, this is why there's a case against me. The Matrix, you know what I mean? And he's basically now officially mask off, been saying like the Matrix is fucking Israel, or sometimes he does say Jews, right? And so Andrew Tate is this guy, and to be clear, the court case against him or whatever, that was happening before October 7th. So that is just overtly opportunistic. These are people who do not care about the truth. They care about their own interest. They know that they can pollute the kind of media ecosystem just by lying. They're very conscious manipulators in that sense. And to have a role model for like young kids or whatever, who is just so overtly a Nietzschean will to power archetype, somebody who primarily is devoted to themselves first and foremost. This is a very common theme that you'll see with a lot of these kind of figures, right? Like the personalities that become conduits for people to engage with politics or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, they're fucking narcissists. And in a lot of cases, they're like black hole humans. They're not really providing much value to anyone beyond themselves. Like they might provide value to those around them, but that's on the kind of, you could say that's hinging on them receiving benefit for that. You know what I mean? They create an orbit around them that protects them from criticism. This is a whole ass conversation, but like there is very much a new age of cult kind of development occurring. Okay. And it is online, and dude, we can get deep into that because I've been observing this first and foremost. It's so overt to see the media wars occurring between interpersonal beefs and people, right? Obviously, I've engaged in this. I've made hit pieces on people. I've spearheaded.
You're participating in the meme war, yeah.
I am participating in the meme war, and I was much more consciously doing that in the case of Sneeko as well. My first video that was my claim to fame, it was for a hit piece I made on Ethan Klein. So that was more so when I did not have the kind of frame or understanding of how my words have weight that I do now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the problem is that when you have an awareness of how you can kind of influence people or whatever, usually you're more careful with what you say. And that's in a lot of ways, the weird thing is that being more careful with what you say is a disadvantage in the media war or whatever.
True. Well, hold on. First off, Jared Thompson for $10. If World War II is the creation myth for modern society and is now unraveling, what will have the memetic staying power and transferability to create a new mythos? Are extremists all building their own mythos? I think it's an excellent question. This is, it's interesting. This is also the frightening thing. It's like the whole Nietzschean idea was when Christianity falls apart, there's going to be violence, right? Death of God. God is dead and we have killed him and there will never be enough water to wash away the blood.
Right.
It's like, okay, let's say that taboos around Hitler fall apart because that's our modern religion. Well, now what? What fucking shows up in its place? Now, the traditionalists is go back to Christianity, and I think there's some truth to that of like, we do need to return to, this is the problem with making Hitler out to be Satan. Satan is literally the archetype of evil. There's no justification. There's no Steelmanning Satan. There's no human, we can understand why Satan did what he did in terms of like, well, this, Satan had the Treaty of Versailles against him and all that shit. It's like Hitler was a real historical figure, and real historical figures are complex. And it's like, when you make a real historical figure you elevate that person to the level of archetype. The reason an archetypal myth is successful is because it's not a human being. Like Jesus is literally the perfect person, right? By definition. Mm-hmm. So you can never say, oh, well, Jesus was really bigoted and misogynistic. Now, of course, people say that, yes. But like in theory, the idea is he's the perfect person. It's never going to come out that Jesus Christ was having an affair with anyone, right? Whereas like a real human being, a historical figure, has all the historical flaws. And because we associate ideologies with people, if you associate an ideology with an archetypal figure like Jesus, it's immune to that, we're looking at his human flaws. But if you associate it with a historical figure, then we can say, well, Martin Luther King hated gay people. So maybe he was wrong about everything, right? Yeah. And then it's like, well, and the reverse is true. Like, well, Hitler had the Treaty of Versailles imposed upon him and all this different shit and all this stuff. It's like, that's nuts.
Yeah.
I have another point, but go.
No, you're good.
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's facts. I mean, a big part of, the way that a lot of people get mythologized is by not like they're so, it's either they're undocumented or they're unexamined. I use this phrase a lot nowadays is like, there's examined behavior and unexamined behavior. You know what I mean? And when you're being examined, usually you will act differently than when you're not examined. Okay, it depends on the person, obviously, but there's a lot of basically mythological almost characters where because you don't know that much about them, you can project a lot of fantasy. You can project a lot of fantasy, a lot of expectation, a lot of hope onto them. And the fact of the matter is that like a human person who is unrefined, who is on a live stream, like this is something that I really had to fucking grapple with just in any way being on a stream, dude. Clip snipers, whatever they call it. These are soldiers. Yeah, exactly. Getting clip chimped. These are soldiers in the memetic war, okay, who totally diminish people's reputations. They are actually in a lot of ways successful in like affecting the perception of a person, right? And again, that is
100%.
A situation where like a lot of times these people are representing an ideology, and so it's like a kind of by attacking the person, you're kind of simultaneously attacking the ideology.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting. I mean, we can even discuss this for a little bit of just like,
the
heuristic of this is how I operate. I can't control the outcomes. I cannot control. First off, arguably, you can't control other people's perceptions. That's always been like basic 101 life advice. Now you can, that doesn't mean you should ignore what other people think.
Yeah.
But like, I see it as, you can like no matter how perfect you are with your words, no matter how tight and careful, the environment is such that someone can clip you up and eventually you'll make a mistake and that'll get blown up in your face. And arguably, and this is I think what happened to Jordan Peterson, his whole thing was be very careful with your words. Be very careful with your words. Never only say what you truly believe to be true. Yeah. He would always talk about how the thing that's going to ruin him is when he says something stupid. He's like, I haven't said anything incredibly stupid yet. And then he goes out and says the fucking Elliot Page stuff and all other kinds of just endless
Yeah.
bullshit
Yeah,
arguing
his
with
Twitter's
people.
his Twitter like totally
Twitter
diminished
destroyed
his
him.
reputation.
And
Yeah.
so here's the thing: if you have the reputation as someone who's like, I'm very careful with my words,
Mhm.
I care a lot about my reputation. Well, then when you eventually slip up, the fall will be even greater.
Yep.
So my heuristic, the way I operate things, the reason I go on Destiny's channel and say, well, maybe Israel did do 9/11. I don't fucking know, because to be clear, maybe they did. I don't know. Is because it's like I would rather. My heuristic is I don't know, it's kind of fucking cringe. Authenticity and sincerity.
Right.
You know, it's like I'm telling you, I'm stating my genuine thought process out loud often.
Mhm.
Obviously, I'll, you know, if I'm being, you know, entertaining or humor, I'll be a bit more, you know, conscious about it. But
Yeah.
like if I'm having a conversation with Destiny, it's like my assumption is, if anything, it's freeing. Like, you know how my friend texted out when I went on his stream and said, yeah, maybe Israel did 9/11. My friend's like, you got the face tattoo of online politics now. And I'm like, oh, nice. I don't have to worry about anything anymore. I can get, you know how easy it is now to just more clearly say like just what I genuinely believe.
Yeah.
The same thing, and the same thing is
Rip
like
the Band-Aid off. Everything.
yeah, and or it's like with race and IQ statistics. Like it's just objectively the fact that they're like people who self-identify as black, on average, when they take IQ tests, score lower than people who self-identify as white. Now, the truth is, a huge chunk of that is cultural, right? And so, like, the whole point of acknowledging that is to then be able to let's fucking do the things like early childhood nutrition and all that to address the problem.
Yeah, whereas a guy like Fuentes would say it's inherent.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which is such bullshit because Charles Murray, the guy who he's citing, says himself the cultural component is massive.
Right.
And so, but even that, it's like talking about race and IQ statistics. It's like, well, you know, it's like, but I don't know. It's like discussing it with people, you know, black or otherwise. It's just like, it I don't know. In some sense, it's like it frees you up to just, yeah, look, people, no one gives a shit about fucking political correctness, at least in this space. And that's good. And so the clip chimpers, it's like, fine, I don't care. I want to be known as the fool. So then people come and see me and go, oh, okay,
I see.
well,
Interesting. It's like a subversion for you, basically.
yeah,
It's like
the expectations are low, and then I exceed the expectations. So it's like, okay, this guy's better than I thought, which is way worse than, or way better than, oh, this guy's way worse than I thought. You know?
Right.
So,
I see. Yeah, you start with low expectations. That's actually an interesting philosophy. I don't know. Okay, so it is inevitable if you're going to have, because that's the problem with nowadays, man, is if you want to have a prolonged kind of, I guess, career online, certainly if you're interfacing with politics, but even in my case, like drama, okay, you are going to need to have a high output usually, right? Like you will have to produce, in some cases, very unrefined content that does open you up to these kinds of, I guess, attacks and whatever.
correct.
And yeah, I mean, there's fair and unfair ways to be attacked and all this stuff. And a lot of times people are really unprincipled about the attacks. Like it's so overtly just like malicious, whatever. There's a thing that's been emerging that I think is worth, I guess, understanding a bit better. This is okay. So I saw this for the first time from Destiny's community. Okay. There is an idea that Destiny, from what I remember, it's like he believes Hassan and his orbit, or at least the online like far left or whatever. Okay. Leftists. He believes that they embody this principle, which is that there is no bad tactics, only bad targets. Okay. And what has now been occurring is this almost universal adopting of that kind of a logic where nowadays, I mean, in the case of people like Dan Saltman or other kind of orbiters of Destiny, there are a lot of people basically who do just view it as like there are no scruples, there are no morals in this exchange. It is literally just a fight, a literal, almost
Pure power grab.
A pure power grab, an information warfare type situation where it's like, okay, so each side has their own Twitter clippers, okay, who will basically editorialize a clip, and basically it's like, okay, so now fucking 500,000 people think this horrible thing about my enemy, right? And then there's the counter clippers, right? There's people who are overt defenders. There's people who will make hit pieces who, in a lot of ways, have to align with one of these power factions, right? Because that is where they get a lot of promotion. I've certainly experienced that and seen that firsthand. Like the first fucking video that I made about H3H3. I like it aligned with the interests of Keemstar at that time, right? So like I might have just been making a video about H3H3 that I, believed in, etc. But it aligned with the interests of certain power players like Keemstar, and so Keemstar promoted the fuck out of it, right? In the case of the Sneeko video, it aligned in a lot of ways with the interests of Destiny at that time. He reacted to the video, as well as some other people, basically people who didn't like Sneeko, you know what I mean? And so there are alliances that are kind of forged, there are audiences that are kind of shared.
Yes.
And this creates basically an ecosystem of us versus them, team sports. You cannot break free of the fucking the hegemonic fucking ideology of your faction. Otherwise, you might become a fucking enemy, and you might get this level of vitriol aimed at you. And there's nothing worse, my friend. There's nothing worse than having both fucking sides double team you, dude.
Listen, as a radical centrist, I know all about it.
Yeah, I'm sure, man. I'm sure.
Well, it's literally warlords. It's like fucking memetic warlords.
Yeah.
Just with little. I mean, it's crude analogy, but child soldiers. I mean, a lot of these audiences are fucking teenagers and shit.
Yeah, it's like, dude, and it gets so dark too because there's like life ruination aspects to it, obviously, where it's like at a certain point when if you attack one community and then that community rifles through all of your content and finds like any kind of incriminating or just like clip that makes you look bad, whatever. They publicize it. It can follow you for fucking life. You're basically committed to now being an online personality for the rest of your life.
Bro, and here's the thing. What we can end with this.
I've felt that happen to me. It's a scary feeling where it's like, okay, so I'm an online person now. This is where I am now. But yeah.
Nick Fuentes talks about that a lot.
I'm sure he's engaged with it at a level few can understand, but
yeah, well, he was like, dude, he says it. Like, he says more or less exactly this. He says, like, dude, I was 18. I said some dumb shit, or I said shit about Israel and all that, and then TPUSA ruined my life, and they basically forced me into this role. And there's a line in the Kanye song, because I watched his analysis of the Kanye song, where he's like, all the money and fame, I can't see my children. So, bitch, I became a Nazi. Now, bitch, I'm the villain.
Oh,
the
that's
idea
a
is being
good
like,
point.
I became that which it's the fucking Game of Thrones. You seen Game of Thrones? Tyrion Lannister?
Yeah. I am. I
wish I was the monster that you thought I was. It's like, well, I'll become the monster that you think I was, and that's a very classic psychological.
You fall into
response.
your role, basically. Yeah.
And I think that is what happened to Nick Fuentes, and I'm here for the Nick Fuentes redemption arc. I've seen clips of him talking about like man, all these like skinheads or people in like all these like super. Like, racism's great. Obviously, racism's great, guys. But like Christianity, like, we're all like, children of God and all that. I'm like, interesting. This guy is, what is he, tempering his own audience now? Like, let's bring more of that out of him. Let's give some space for more of that to happen. Maybe that'll help temper the far right.
I would be skeptical. I haven't been analyzing Fuentes that closely. I know that Sneeko has also been distancing himself from some of the more like extreme shit in the sense of he flatly rejects white nationalism as an idea, I believe now. Good. Which
now he's for Sharia law,
as he should. I don't know. I'm not like, because he's just not been so overt as of late, and it seems like he's been trying to re-enter the mainstream, and he's basically been rejected from doing that, and so now I guess he's embracing the Kanye stuff. But I mean, God, I'm not convinced on a fucking redemption arc, really. What's the other one that I remember thinking about? It was, so like Ethan Klein. Ethan Klein's an interesting case right now because he is a guy who is, in a lot of ways, factionally homeless. Okay, and what that means is basically he is a guy who his comeuppance was basically he was just a general comedy guy, a little bit reactionary, like, he kind of played into a little bit of edgier humor. He attracted an audience that was, whatever, largely, I guess, young guys who liked kind of shock humor, edgy humor, whatever.
Vape Niche.
Vape Niche. There's like components to this that are not as extreme as I'm putting it, but like the point is basically he had this kind of general status quo-ish, kind of edgy humor enjoying audience. And he did, in a way, kind of break off from that audience. He embraced, especially I believe during the Black Lives Matter movement, 2020, he kind of embraced a more like on the nose progressive ideology.
Mm.
People can speculate if they think that's just because he wanted to kind of acclimate to the social, expectations of
Yeah,
living in
he
LA.
wanted to where he thought Hassan was cool because Ethan was not ever cool and Hassan was cool, and he's like, I need to get cozy with Hassan.
Yeah, it's more of like, so before he fully aligned with Hassan, he kind of went the path with Trisha Paytas. He went from like usually younger guys liking him to like younger women liking him. Basically, he courted the T audience, right? So he went to like a more, women-centric drama sphere or whatever.
The T audience? What's the T audience?
Oh, interesting. You don't know shit, bro.
The transgender audience?
No. Sorry, the T.
Like, what's
community.
the T?
This is crazy.
Like gossip, like women's gossip.
I'm revealing how intimate my drama expert title is applicable.
Yeah, exactly. You're fucking revealing your expertise here.
Yes. The T community you see is basically the drama sphere, okay, for usually more so women audiences or progressive audiences, LGBTQ audiences. Basically, if you're into like the James Charles drama or the Jeffree Star drama, if you like Shane Dawson's documentaries a lot, that's more so in the vein of the T community. Trisha Paytas is she's the kind of target of and kind of a composer of a lot of drama. And so, yes, Ethan Klein kind of embraced this more progressive drama enjoying faction, whatever. Eventually it breaks off. Shocking. They have like a massive drama. I always thought that was cynical, but when I looked more into it, they actually broke off. And it was weird because like they had family involved too. It actually like, this is a common.
Yeah, it was like a brother, like Hila's brother, some shit. Yeah,
Dude,
yeah. It's
Hila's
a
brother married and had a kid with fucking Trisha Paytas, and again, like this is just drama, okay? But it is what that kind of revealed to me is that I don't think that Ethan Klein. It seems like at least doesn't really keep that much of a distance between the drama and like his own personal relationships, if that makes any sense. But whatever, all that to say, eventually courts Hassan Piker. This is still a progressive audience, more progressive, right? But they basically centered their relationship around shitting on right-wing pundits. And it was basically it was like an ally or a friendship that was built on having a mutual enemy. And over time, they, there's certain contradictions started to show themselves, right? So like, Ethan kind of gets, I guess, uncomfortable with the like more, I guess, extreme beliefs of some of Hassan's audience. He realizes that basically that Hassan does have a kind of cult of personality fostering around him. Ethan, of course, does as well, but Hassan's is pretty powerful. And then Ethan kind of starts to like lash out a little bit. He's basically he's starting to kind of test the amount of room that he has effectively. He tries to kind of push back against his audience. He's starting to boldly be like, yes, I'm a capitalist, whatever. He's embracing all these kind of things that he knows will kind of, I guess, piss off Hassan's base. And over time, he starts to challenge Hassan a little bit more, whatever. A little bit of interpersonal drama is coming, and then October 7th happens, and that is basically effectively the severing, more or less, of the relationship. It takes a while for it to really properly turn sour, but the point is, effectively, is that Ethan did put a lot of time into effectively courting not just drama-hungry people, but also progressives, right? So, like, again, you add the
ultra-progressives,
yeah, and in the case of like these progressives, right? Look, yes, it's just true. Like Ethan Klein is very, very, I would say, bad, honestly, at navigating most political topics. Okay, he is not careful about it, and in a lot of ways, he has actively now, certainly, fully alienated a lot of his progressive audience. Okay, especially obviously the ones who have sympathies to Hassan, and so now he's kind of not got a designated, you could say, like faction, and he has fallen back. He has fallen back to, I guess you could say, my community, but like the more, I guess, male-centric drama community, whatever you would say, the kind of like edgier kind of community. And it is fascinating to see because a lot of the contradictions, a lot of the things that people, myself included, criticized H3 for back in the day, they're present now, but at full fucking force, effectively. So it is revealing a kind of sense where it's like, okay, the problem wasn't necessarily that Ethan Klein was targeting advertisers, trying to get people deplatformed, that he was spreading misinformation. Like he's doing all three of these things right now. The problem wasn't necessarily that. The problem was more so that he was actively antagonistic to his more edgy audience. And now that he's kind of looking for a base, he is finding comfort in that prior kind of community, because he's providing antagonism toward Hassan, right? And so, yes, of course, this is just true. Like, you have people like Destiny who are emphatically backing Ethan, right? You have obviously Dan Saltman's kind of coordinating a deplatforming campaign.
It's like World War One. It's like Archduke Franz Ferdinand gets assassinated, and then now the Austrians are coming in, and we don't really give a fuck about these people, but it's an opportunity to go attack this enemy and whatnot. But and again, it's like it's just drama. It's like, yes, but this is the landscape in which ideologies are mediated.
And dude, that's the wild part of it, the most unreal part of it to me. And this has been like a fucking disaster in my head, because it's like, oh no, oh God. But yes, the reality is that this drama, interpersonal beef, is within the backdrop of the Israel-Palestine crisis. You know what I mean? Like, is in the backdrop of this very real political event. And the way that most people are interfacing with the real event is through the lens of the personalities, right? And that opens the door for a whole lot of weird shit. But we'll see what the outcome is. But in terms of, dude, it's wild to see, to be honest, because there's people who know that and they actively inject their political bias, right? There's people who are like kind of, basically they are actively using the drama as a conduit. There's people who do not care about the politics, but absolutely want to talk about the drama. And so they're forced to interface with politics, but they don't know how to. So they're trying to constantly basically wash their hands of the responsibility of engaging with the politics to focus on the drama. And what it basically is just a clusterfuck. It's a total clusterfuck. And it is absolutely an online war that is taking place. In ways, it is a proxy war, right? Because there are people who are backing certain factions. There's a ton of conduits being used. And look, I do think, I wonder if you have an opinion, because now it's common basically for Destiny's name to be invoked as Ethan is aligned with Destiny. I'm curious to ask basically if you have any opinions on that, or if you've observed that as well, if you think that's true.
I think Destiny hates Hassan.
Yeah.
And I think honestly Destiny's position on Israel and Palestine was pre-established by his hatred towards the progressive left. Welcome
to the red pill, my friend.
Had different people hated Destiny, he would have been pro-Palestine,
And so that's where we get to something very interesting, which is realizing at a certain point that the politics are a conduit for the interpersonal beefs.
Of course.
And it is, in a way, scary, because it's like we get back to the whole, there's no bad tactics, only bad targets, right? We bring it back to that, and we realize basically that there is basically almost no kind of stone that will go unturned in trying to destroy your enemy or to weaken them or whatever. And yes, I mean, there's a lot of information that I could get, I guess, into with this whole fucking weird ecosystem that's emerging. But a big part of it is that a lot of the people involved are defining their politics in antagonism to the personalities they dislike, right? They're either consciously or accidentally falling into that trap. And
which is not just limited to online space. That's what defined the Trump election.
Yeah,
People voted against Trump.
Thing.
Yeah, right.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point that you bring up, because yeah, dude, I mean, look, anybody with eyes, I'd like to think, can see that the Democrat Party did define a lot of their campaign and their policies and et cetera in antagonism to fucking Trump, right? Like, they are in a lot of ways a party that doesn't really project much of a fucking platform of their own that isn't like a clear reaction to the other faction. And this is where I really just kind of get a little bit, I don't know if the word's blackpill, but it's just like, damn, there really aren't many principles involved, right? There's not much of, that I guess is worth respecting in certain ways, because it's basically a circumstance where it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Yep. In my efforts to attack my enemy, okay, I will employ the same tactics that they apply to me. If my enemy steps this deep into the abyss, into one step deeper into hell, then I will follow them and step maybe even a little bit deeper into hell. And what you're basically seeing is just a fucking mud wrestle, a brutal mud wrestle that is, in my opinion, this is the big thing that I've been saying. It's leading to some brutal precedents being set. So you have Ethan Klein, who is threatening to sue guys like Noah Samson for defamation, but it goes deeper than that, because a lot of people like to write that off because they, just basically say like, well, maybe there's a case there. I think those people are, we'll see how that goes. Mm-hmm. But the point is that it's now entering lawfare. Okay. It's now entering actively trying to cancel people's sponsors, right? So it's like you're actively trying to take away their livelihood, actively trying to deplatform people, get rid of their ability to fucking speak. And these are all things that my community, commentary community, we usually would rally against. But this entire circumstance, there has not really been a large outcry against what is happening. And the common thing with that is that Hassan deserves it. That's the basic conclusion. It's like, it is not a case. It is quite simply, he is the correct target of this level of vitriol. He would do the same if he was in our position, basically. And you are navigating dangerous waters, because now, again, you are defining your principles in antagonism to those who are fucking opposed to you. And that, in my head, is a recipe for long-term disaster. This drama, okay, which, again, very politically charged drama, is almost zero of the players, from what I can tell, are thinking with a long-term frame of mind. Okay. It's very short-sighted. It's destructive. It's a fucking mud wrestle. And I don't see any good really coming out of it. We'll see. But
we got to wrap up here. I'll say the person I do think that as people degenerate, he who sticks to his principles the most is afforded the most power.
We shall see.
I believe that. Now, power in what sense? You may die in the process, but if your ideas win in the long term, then that's the real power. But okay, this is excellent. We'll have to speak again on some other things. I'm sure things. Look, the landscape is always
it's shifting, bro.
Yeah, it's always shifting. So we'll have some stuff. All right.
And I really do appreciate you, because I can tell that you're a fellow nerd. You really like the bigger picture analysis. And that honestly is rare. I won't lie. There's not like, I don't know if the word's sociology or whatever, but like the kind of the analysis of how, power factions are being affected and moving and whatever. This is definitely something that fascinates me. So hopefully other people think so too. Yeah.
It has consequence. All right. I'm going to end the stream. We can talk for a little bit afterwards.
God bless. Okay.
Godspeed, everyone. Real quick. If Hitler equals Satan, church and state must be entangled. True. Everyone is religious. Jordan Peterson was correct. Never forget it. All right. Godspeed, everyone. Peace.